Folks, breaking news just in the last 3 hours, and it's Marco Rubio who hits the airwaves. Donald Trump makes an announcement with Chinese working with Xi Jinping to secure all that for the United States, while Mark Carney and Pierre go at it, and it's in the parliament today, and Pierre and his crony conservatives respond with, "Oh no, we're happy with immigration. We're not against this immigration. Canada needs that immigration." They're going to get a deal with Donald J. Trump. Marco Rubio publishes 30 minutes after that and announces that all U.S. ambassadors to mass immigration countries are going to be scrutinizing those countries and governments forevermore. If you didn't know, and you're a card-carrying liberal and conservative in Canada, you will never see a trade deal with the United States. I'm sorry you're all so foolishly dense, but America, with the longest uncontrolled border in the world, aka on their doorstep, the North, much, much more fantastic than Mexico, that is a controlled and military watched border, unlike Canada's, who has a mass immigration rate and is involved in that illegal immigration through NGOs from their London orgs all the way to Geneva, Switzerland, under the old world order that does not recognize the United States. Pierre said it all live in Parliament, and no sooner had that gone out that Pierre says he's going to get a deal with the United States. Marco Rubio interjects. It's all over CTV News. No Canadian government is going to save Canadians when, through their politicians, it's a war on America. If you don't know the latest, Premier Danielle Smith, Alberta, who's got 8,500 Chinese CCTV cameras in the province of Alberta. I haven't seen any of those taken down. The most stringent post-COVID laws in not only all of USA, 50 states, but all of Canada, is now trying to get a northern gateway pipeline to China, as her and David Eby from the far left NDP already secured now on their third natural gas project that will absolutely drain all of Alberta's natural gas, pennies on the dollar, with zero foreign investment, only Canada-wide and Alberta provincial investment in selling Alberta's Great Lakes of natural gas to now more than 3 billion people in China and Beijing. 10 times more than anyone had ever presented in Alberta's history. But apparently all Canadians don't understand what Agenda 2050 really is. It's about consuming all of Canada's fossil fuels before 2050, meaning consume them in one generation. There won't be anything left for anybody. Now, Mark Carney, Danielle Smith, and the blocker David Eby, who loves his gas taxes and doesn't want to transition away from that, he's got BC Hydro. See, his plan and NDP's plan is Alberta, long before 2050, will run out of natural gas as they divert it all to China and Beijing, 3 billion customers, pennies on the dollar, while NDP and the Liberals get extremely rich in British Columbia, along with the Chinese who control all the ports. But don't worry, they're doing it with Aframax. It's okay. Liberal-owned shipping from Paul Martin. Don't worry. It's illegal and it's in violation of international law by the, countries like the United States of America and Russia. Don't worry about it though. The premier's got this. Mark Carney, he's totally going to beat the shit out of the United States and Russia, right? And play China against them, even though Russia and China are in BRICS like they don't know. And they don't absolutely hate Canada. China hates the whole British Empire system. If you don't know the Opium Wars 1 and 2, you don't know about the 100-year occupation of Hong Kong, the devastation to China. Wow. And people don't. I see it in the media in Canada every day. America doesn't fall for any of this. So American media has nothing to say on any of those issues. And in fact, the opposite. Donald J. Trump's reaching out to Xi Jinping in honesty and transparency, being tough but being transparent, getting a good deal for Americans, needing that Chinese investment that is coming into America. Do you know where Chinese investment isn't going into? Canada. Yeah, it's Canada taking everything they have and everything every subject could ever have by borrowing and debt loading against them, their children and grandchildren, forevermore, to build these transitionary projects, to sell everything at bottom dollar to China. And the Crown of Canada, along with all their European counterpart evils, and people call this the UN. It's not. It's NGO land that has attached itself to the UN General Assembly, not the United Nations Security Council. In fact, they can't get any of that passed there. United Nations, not united non-governmental agencies around or organizations around the world, from the Palace of Nations run by UK, France, Italy, and Japan of its time as the Security Council of that. All monarchies. And of course, the other kingdoms of the monarchical empires of the time. That's gone. That's been gone since World War II. And you have USA going, this isn't going to fly. And if you think you're going to sell all of your reserves that we've invested in, developed for you, all through the Ralph Klein era, maximum American investment to build places like Alberta, northern BC, and Saskatchewan up, especially in mining, all American, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to debt load against Canadian subjects to invest all of that into China that USA invested into you. A huge slap in the face. And what gets me is Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, with his huge statement on mass immigration. He supports it all the way, and then Marco Rubio comes along. We're going to be red flagging every single one of you sick delusionals, because America's not going to put up with it anymore, especially everybody. You're their longest unsecured border, not only in the world, but on the actual border of the United States. What do you think America's going to do with you? Right? Oh, it's totally different, right? You're totally better than Mexico. Don't worry about your mass immigration from all the countries that hate the United States. Don't worry about that. You've made them legal. It's illegal in America. It's a threat to national security. But don't worry. You're going to be okay. You're special. You're magical. Just like the crown, right? You're magical. The government told you you're special. America will learn to respect you. Huh. Wow. Pierre just got the beatdown of a lifetime, as did Mark Carney, if you haven't been paying attention. And he just got flatlined literally within a half hour of his parliamentary outburst, where he gets into, no, we support immigration, Canada. We're all for that. Again, everybody, over 1 million a year into Canada. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what Canada's going to look like in just 30 more years of this. The Agenda 2050. It's not even 30 more years because of the rates we've already been experiencing. By Agenda 2050, Canada isn't even going to be English speaking anymore. You're going to be wrestling with a whole number of BRICS nation languages looking at taking over your education system. French are all worried about where they're going to be. We stay on this trajectory, French is going to be wiped out quick, long before 2050. That'll be the minority's minority. They're going to learn and understand what the First Nations have known for hundreds of years in the Canadian history. And then it's going to be the English people by 2050, for sure. You will be a secondary language in your own country. You'll be sitting where the French are, complaining in what would be districts, but were provinces, so they'll have you all divided out, easily controlled. It amazes me Canadians don't see it. Albertans have the largest growing migration for mass immigration in the entire world. Alberta will be unrecognizable before anybody else. It's also the most communitized. It's also got the most autocratic provincial laws out of any province in the entire country. I know this for a fact. I'm all over this country. I've been in some serious places that make me feel pretty bad. What I see all around me and influence me, and it does suck. But nothing sucks more than knowing the truth of where I grew up, where I was born into, where my generational family. People talk to me about Americans and Canada. I know 51st Staters want to post a post about how America largely created Alberta through immigration. I'm sorry, that's not true. My ancestors are American. That's a fact. My great-great-grandfather is American and came on that promise before Alberta was a province. We were a territory. And yes, that route that's shared by the 51st State Movement in Alberta is true, but there's also a route to Saskatchewan too. There's also a route all the way up to the Yukon, all the way past to Alaska. I know, I grew up on the old Gold Road. Know all about it. Know all about it. Yes, a lot of Americans ventured there. Upwards of 1 million between the years of 1890 to 1905. But I can promise you, as I know my own history, my family's history, well documented, we're one of the first families to enter after the treaties, the numbered treaties. And yes, while we and our roots are American, I know that all of the roots around me are European, mass amounts of Brits and many, many others. Ukraine, for instance, and not in any kind of good terms. Chinese, not in any good terms. But even the Chinese had it better than the Ukrainians. But mass amount of Europeans, Poles, Ukrainians, and others treated very badly. I have these roots in my family too. I have that in my ancestry and in all of our history, well logged. And I tell this to be honest, that America was probably 23% of BC Yukon, which is the Northwest Territory what I'm talking about. This is before those provinces. Big Manitoba from postage stamp. Of course, the expansion of Northern Ontario and Quebec. But you have more American influence in Eastern Canada than you ever did in Western Canada. It was upwards of about 1 million in all of Western Canada. I'm being honest. And I know this because I've searched down all my roots. We've got Romanian in my family tree. I got Romanian. I even know the name German, right? Hilda, right? That was my grandmother, my great-grandmother Olga. These aren't American names, right? And I'm not saying in my family, sure, 25% American, and that name was American before it was Canadian, and that's truth. But so many Europeans, mass amounts, it overshadows the Americans. And yes, Americans moved on the promise of acres and land, but the idea that it was all free is just not true either. Some crown land was very cheap, but none of it was truly ever free. Some did get some free. I know my great-grandfather got a portion, a small portion, but from quarters to sections, that was all paid modest sums at the time, but it was paid for, and I know that. And my family comes at that time, that first initial release. We're first settler generations before Alberta was a province. I'm just being honest. And you can look at the French Louisiana, all of that, and what the French Empire held and what they sold to the United States. Yes, that includes big chunks of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and into Manitoba, absolutely, and into lower BC. And then there's other earlier treaties for BC, earlier ones across all the other provinces. Absolutely. I've talked about that in great depth. That's US UK treaties over what is Canada, and that's a tremendous amount, most of populated Canada. But I don't make propaganda for any province, let alone the one I was born into. I know people mean well, but I don't stretch truths. I stay the course. And if you've been watching people like Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Donald J. Trump as of late, especially the vice president and Trump's number two on foreign policy, wow. If those who've loyally followed me for quite some time now, those who've stayed the course, have I not nailed it? Have all the things I've not rolled out are ringing in epic truth and magnitude unbelievable now today? The G7 radar with J.D. Vance, now Marco Rubio, tackling every time a Canadian politician opens their mouth about mass immigration. And now this is what foreign ambassadors to places like Canada have to deal with. And when you're measuring mass immigration, remember everybody, Canada is number one, and the number one province recipient is Alberta. I don't see Daniel Smith running up and down going, no, no, stop this. We just heard Pierre Poilievre today. Where I was born, Peace River, Alberta, that MP got up in the name of Pierre Poilievre and says, no, no, it's a lie. We love mass immigration. That's what he said. From where I was born, Peace River, Alberta. Alberta Conservative. UCP is the most corrupt of the Conservative parties. I've known this to be true for quite some time. Were there lots of MLAs who saw and touched base with me, saw eye to eye when I did my property rights presentation in the legislature of Alberta? I won half of those. Well, guess what? Half of those that supported me are no longer in power anymore. Snap election, get out. And they ostracized all of those who wanted to cement the highest law of America, of all 50 states, in every single U.S. Constitution, that property is higher than the state constitution itself. It is a natural law every American is born and entitled to. Think about that in terms of governance. That is not anything ever in Canada or ever will be as long as we stay in this monarchy. And when blind conservatives line up and they go, yeah, Pierre said he's going to do this, but in the next sentence, he drives a nail and a stake like a vampire right through your heart, and you don't recognize that, and you're dying, you're bleeding out, and you still cheer for him, and you don't even know that your kids are left destroyed. That is mass institutionalization. That is terrifyingly scary. Everybody, this is a critical video. Breaking news. You've got it. If I didn't put the link in the title, I'm going to. It's right before this video. So close out the video. Please share it. Get it out to everyone you can. The days of being a lying, no good subject in league with the crown have to stop. We all have to unite. From all walks of life in Canada, unite. And stay strong that there is no crown salvation. We're at that point. They are all in it to destroy you, your children, your grandchildren, forevermore. And if you doubt this, and you think America's lying, wow, where have you been? Because you haven't been watching mass majority Congress and Senate bills going through, ending socialism. I have told and I have claimed that if we stay on the road we're on, the next major military conflict for the United States of America is going to be USA versus Canada. If you don't believe this, or you think it's, you're a lunatic, you're out to lunch, you best start going and looking at the last week of events. You better start looking at continually daily breaking news from people like Marco Rubio, Trump's #2 head of foreign relations, who's working on the Russia program right now. Have you seen the latest that Ukraine can't go on? And if Russia decides to not accept any sue or treaty for peace from Ukraine, within less than 2 years, the entirety of Ukraine's going to fall. USA recognizes this, and stopping short of a direct USA-Russia war, which I know the colonial world wants, Canada wants, European Union wants, Britain wants, but USA's not dumb. Russians aren't dumb either. They're looking at each other. Do you really want us to go toe-to-toe with the most advanced nuclear systems in the world, hypersonically from outer space, where there is no doubt you can easily destroy the United States of America and Russia? Those two countries can easily do that. Never mind the rest of the world, but who really wants that? And USA is not going to go that distance for that. And USA's got its own problems, and the number one problem that's been there since the Revolutionary War and long before the Revolutionary War, I can show you those 13 colonies in their ordinances and what Canada was doing to them as the British Empire, what they were doing to them, and what they were going to try and force upon them. I've articulated these things way farther and more detailed history long before the Revolutionary War of 1776. Oldest, longest running enemy of the Americans. That's the truth. And it's still that way today. And it's up to you, Canadians, loyal friends and followers, to wake as many up as you can. We've got to do this. Because it's your children, your grandchildren, who are going to be the biggest losers holding the bag. If you don't believe this, you really haven't read any of the colonial history that's befallen so many countries around the world and where they had to go in utter devastation. I don't want to wait for utter devastation. I want to be able to walk this country into something better, Canada, the 51st state, before it can't walk, before it's dragging on its belly, starving, dying of thirst, crippled, mangled, and it takes a long, long time to come back from that. Many generations. You don't want that. And if you doubt that, that is precedent in world history, and that is the most likely outcome for countries that are blindly going forward like this. Pierre Poilievre is not going to be getting any deal with the United States. Good theater in Parliament, but he messed up when he went with mass immigration, and Marco Rubio came along and swung the baseball bat and connected him and his MPs right in the skull. Knockout blow, just the same knockout blow they landed on Mark Carney. If you haven't figured it out, it's your entire government. His Majesty's Prime Minister and party, Liberals, and His Majesty's official opposition. They don't care. They recognize it all as, this is an honest piece of shit, Mark Carney. He's honest about his evil. And then there's the dishonest piece of shit, Pierre Poilievre, who's going to lie to all of you until he gets into power and transforms into another Mark Carney. Just like Trudeau, just like Stephen Harper, Paul Martin, on and on and on. Chrétien, keep going. And it goes on and on and on for the entirety of all of Canada's history. And it only exponentially gets worse. You need to be the change. You need to get the word out there. I'm one man. I can give the messaging. I can give the truth. But I need all of you to share. God bless. Get it out there. Have a great night. Love you all. Bye now.